Hey, hello, this is Sean Dorf from the podcast Thrive, Not Survive After Child Abuse. Um, just um, just a few weeks ago, actually, it's exactly 2 weeks ago, I guess. I was listening to this lady. Her name is Jamie Kern Lima. You might have heard of her if you follow Oprah or you follow one of the other talk shows. Then you probably have seen her, Jamie Kern Lima. Um, she sold her makeup line for 1.2 billion dollars to L'Oreal. So that's the she was the biggest makeup line that there is. Now, we're not talking about makeup today. We might do that another day. But this woman has a remarkable vision on life. And if you think about these things always, like, when you hear these numbers, and this is absolutely crazy, of course. You don't see that often, that you come up with a product and it sells for 1.2 billion dollars, right? That's just sheer crazy. Um, and so you always think, oh, I wish that happened to me and stuff like that. And well, it could happen to you, but also that's not the point of these things. But it is always good to listen to stories of those hugely successful people. And then, and if you think about it, most of these stories actually are almost always the same. That is, they always went through some hardship and they overcame the hardship, and then something miraculous happened. So it seems often that we have to go through something, we have to push something through. We have to push through something. I was just, finding the words there. Push through something before we actually achieve something. Now she started strong with just saying like, "Hey, a big setback can be a setup. A big setback can be a setup." No, maybe that's true. In her case, it definitely was true. So what happened to her? She was reading the news. She was one of the anchor women at a news station, and she had to be on television every day for a couple of hours. And she was using makeup, but the makeup didn't hold her. She had a skin condition, and so the makeup that didn't work for her. And then she heard in her ear like, "Hey, your makeup is coming off," and stuff like that. So at some point in time, she couldn't just go on television anymore, and she decided to come up with makeup that that was good for her skin. And she figured out that, hey, if it's good for my skin, then maybe it's also good for other people's skin, right? And so she made that. She made that makeup. The point is that not everyone immediately jumped onto. It was not like that L'Oreal immediately said, "Hey, let's buy this for 1.2 billion dollars," right? It took her, I don't know how many attempts, but a lot of attempts, um, before she had a chance to come on a network TV channel where she could demonstrate her product. And there, the people wanted her to demonstrate the product in the way that they were used to it. You need to be nice looking, stuff like that. And she decided to do it in a different way because she had to sell a lot of products in like 20 minutes. And the way it goes, it's kind of interesting if you think about it. The way it goes, so if you don't sell the first 2-3 minutes, then your time that you can broadcast become shorter and shorter. But so what she did, she took off her on television, live television. She took off her own makeup. Everyone could see her skin condition, and then she started to apply the makeup, and everyone could then see how beautiful it was. And within, I think it was less than 12 minutes, she was completely sold out. She became the biggest product on that network TV networks TV, where you could buy a lot of stuff. I forgot the name of it, but that was after she had to hear a lot of no's, from investors, from banks, from all big, all big Sephora, the big the big warehouses, all this kind of stuff. They just had a hard time to accept her until, of course, she became so big that no one could change that. So so the difference between success and not success, you've heard it, but there was a second thing. The biggest difference between success and not success is not giving up, because you never know, success might be around the corner. And we definitely will do a talk that sometimes, you need to give up, but that's a little bit always a scary thing, right? It's like, you buy a lottery ticket, and once you start buying a lottery ticket, you think, okay, you have the numbers that you put in there, and you always think like, hey, what will happen if I don't buy it in a week, and then maybe maybe that week the numbers that I always pick, that you will see that's the numbers that will draw, and that's how they get you, right? That's how they always, make sure that you always. So the big lotteries, they play on that thing too, right? So never give up, because you never know if it's your success. Now, you have a much bigger chance, by the way, to have success, even to get the $1.2 billion by working on a business than buying a lottery ticket. That's just how it is. Now, someone has to win the lottery ticket. So maybe you're one of those lucky people, but a good backup plan of that would definitely be working hard on your own business or in a different career path, right? So so often we get into something, and it could be like me doing a podcast, or there could be you starting a business, or you pursue something that you're passionate about. It could be something in music or something in art. It could be anything, right? And we always say, as coaches, we always say you have to know your why first. The thing is actually that you never know 100% what your why is until you start walking that path, and you this is what Jamie Kern Lima said as well, you peel back the layers of your why to find your true why you do it, right? I think I had that experience even with writing my own book. I wrote my book. Of course, I knew why I wrote the book. That's kind of clear. That's what I thought. But doing this podcast, talking lately to quite a bit of people about my book, I start to see the deeper meaning of why I wrote the book. How strange is that, right? Excuse me, I had to take a little sip of water. And how strange is that, right? That you just, it's your own book. You think you know it inside out, all letters and all pieces, but even there, and it might be only me, but I'm just curious if other authors or other creators have that same thing, that you sometimes see the deeper meaning of your own products only later when you go through it. Now, I didn't sell any product yet for $1.2 billion, but I kind of related to how Jamie Kern Lima said that when she said, peel back the layers of your why to find your true why. And so that's actually true. I had that same experience. You become more and more authentic as you do that. So you find some sort of purity in the real reason why you do the things that you do when you start to walk that path, right? It doesn't come to you. You cannot, like a business plan. That's how I learned how to make a business plan. You write your vision and your mission and stuff like that. You actually have to walk and live it, and then you start to see actually, a bigger meaning maybe of why that is. So I thought it was interesting that I could actually really relate to almost everything that she said. So if we start to get into business, or we start to get into writing a book or whatever, then so I wrote big chapters, or a big part of my chapters. That's what I wanted to say. I wrote them in Barnes and Nobles. And not only because I like the coffee there, but it is actually, to keep me a little bit humble, because there's so many books. And if you know that most authors, they don't even sell 1,000 books, ever, total, literally 80%, I believe, is the number of the writers. They don't even sell 1,000 books, and most of them are actually bought just by the distribution channel, like a Barnes and Nobles. But that's the reality. And when I wrote a book, and you probably would put it under self-help or autobiography or something like that. That's where you put it. And I was thinking, wow, that's a rows and rows of books that are already there. So I thought, why would I actually think that I have to add something to that big stack and pile of books that are already written and not even get sold, right? Um, but but strangely, yes, with that creation process and that process of writing a book, you find out who you truly are, right? I mean, you really meet yourself in that process. And if you have a good editor, and I certainly had one, then they strip even more away from you. It's like you have to even reveal. You have to take something off to reveal something more. It's like David, like that famous statue. I will do a whole podcast on that once again. But he was cut out of a piece of marble, and that piece of marble, a few more artists has took a step at it until Michelangelo actually did it. And if you think about sculpting, you actually take stuff off until you see. So someone, in this case the artist, already saw the statue in that piece of marble. And that's the feeling that I often had. It's like that book was already written, and I was struggling and I was fighting to, because they wanted to take more pages and more pages off. And my editor at some point in time said, you need to make it as short as you can and as authentic as you can. And I was fighting it because I wanted to almost do a double amount of pages that it is. I said, my book is just, it's just a little bit over 100 pages. That's hardly a book. But it became a book. It became a bestseller, by the way, in that section of autobiography and self-help. So it can all happen, of course. Um, and I noticed, Jamie Kern Lima said here, there's only one you that gives all the freedom that you need. And at some point in time, I came free from all the thoughts why I would write in a certain way or in a different way, and I was trying to say it politically right, and then I wanted to leave stuff out, and I wanted to portray something a little bit better than the reality. But if this was a true story of life, I had to tell everything. And actually, that's when I felt that I started to connect with other people really well. And some of my ghost readers actually said that too. When she read the first version, she said, "It's good, but it's not really you yet." And I thought, what? What? I mean, is that not really me? And I mean, I worked already so hard. So and several people gave that feedback. So I had to come back and do it again, right? And and so the next sentence that Jamie said is, you need to be really good at cheering yourself on. And that is so true, right? You need to keep going with that creating process, in this case writing a book, but it could also be forming a company. It could be another project that that you want to finish off. You need to cheer yourself on to do that. And yesterday I talked about, it was coming from the same speech where I was inspired by it, and I often do that, right? I do 2-3 podcasts around the same inspiration. But a lot of people need to see it to believe it, right? So a lot of people, because I've said it for I don't know how many years, I'm going to write a book and it will be a bestseller. And at some point in time, people say, yeah, no, I need to see it to believe it, right? Because I said it so often. But I already saw it. I knew that it would happen, right? I saw it. I found a way to do it. And that is true with, and I'm not saying that I'm a visionary, but people with some kind of vision or a very strong dream like I had to do that, you already know it, that it can happen. It already happened before it actually happens, right? So that was the topic of yesterday. Yeah, I didn't forget that. Normally I start off with, hey, the topic of yesterday was, and so on and so on, but I saved it for kind of the middle or almost the end of the podcast of today. So that's that. But there were people actually who never wavered from the belief in me, and that's where I want to conclude it. And I probably pick it up tomorrow again. So they never stopped believing in me, And when that happened to you, whether you're a business owner or whether you work in a company, let's try to turn that around. Let's do it differently than we have done it so far, right? So often you hear people say, and I'm so happy I proved them all wrong, right? I made it to the top of the mountain. I proved them all wrong. But this is where I could connect the most with Jamie, because he said, I wanted to prove the people that actually believed in me from the very beginning that they were right. I didn't want to focus on the naysayers and the negative people to prove them wrong. That feels like some sort of a revenge, right? And I had the same feeling. I said, I have like a moral obligation almost to the people who support me to prove them right, that I can finish that book, that I can publish it, and that we can push it to a bestseller. So that's actually the quintessence of my podcast today. Is why don't we go out there and prove to people that they are right? Why do we let ourselves be influenced, even if it spurs us to do something better, right? But it's still with a negative feeling. Why don't we do that, right? Why don't we say, oh, and I proved them wrong? And there's something negative in there. Why don't we prove them right? Why don't we prove the people and that's always a very small group, I call them my tribe, that actually will stay behind you and with you all the time. And say, hey, prove them right. I had more pride in that and doing that. And of course, I would be a big fat liar if I also had a little bit of a good feeling, saying, hey, you said I couldn't do it, but I did it, right? Of course, I had that too. But if you go through life and you actually prove the people that believe in you, the people that bought your product, right? Those kind of things, if you are in business, the people that bought your product, or the people that that hired you for your services, right? Prove them right. Prove them that you actually, and double prove them almost, like over deliver. They gave you that trust. You don't have to disprove the people who didn't believe and distrust you anyhow, right? Prove the people who gave you that trust, even if it's only one customer. Prove that person that he or she was absolutely right when she gave that trust to you. All right, or he. Okay, this was Shah with an episode of Thrive, Not Survive After Child Abuse. I'll probably continue this podcast tomorrow. I want to make a connection with what the abuse is in here, but I thought there was a good setup, from a woman that I met and I admire a lot. Well, I didn't meet him in person. I was in a congress, and her name is Jamie Kern Lima. If you want to look her up, you will find that there's a lot of things in there. It's a woman with an absolutely good heart, and yes, she has $1.2 billion, and there are absolutely rich people with an extremely good heart, right? All right, this was Shah, and I'll hope to hear you tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.